Welcome to Open Office Hours, everyone. This is a time every month where we break down different startup concepts to help you gain traction in the most important parts of your business. And today we're going to be talking about financial models for your startup. My name is Jacob Miller. I'm the marketing and brand manager here at Headway. I help put on events like this to help founders, designers, developers, all sorts of folks, even product people, as we share things that we're learning, frameworks, mindsets around launching and growing new products and launching startups. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Andrew and Ryan so they can introduce themselves, and then I'll tell you how today's presentation will go. So Ryan.
Hey, Jacob, thanks. Welcome, everyone. Super excited to have you and join you today. I run the product team here at Headway and excited to dig into financial models. Andrew, who's Andrew?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So I'm Andrew, partner and CEO at Headway, and yeah, excited to really dig into here. As Jacob mentioned, we'll talk a little bit about today's session and what we'll be doing, and excited to dig in to everybody.
Awesome. Love it. So today we'll get started with a short video that we're going to watch together. It's a one we pre-recorded with Ryan where he kind of just does a quick overview of financial models and how it applies to startup ideas or maybe pricing and products and all that kind of stuff. And then, so as we're watching that, be sure to put your questions in the chat so we can be aware of them and then we can answer them after that short little video. And we'll also be going through a little discussion after that, a guided discussion. We have some more slides that we're going to walk through after that initial video. So I'm going to hit play on this video and then we'll regroup on that. So don't forget to add your questions in the chat and we'll see you in a little bit.
When launching a new venture, it's important to understand, hey, is this thing going to make money? Is this going to get me to where I want to be from a financial perspective? And the thing to ask yourself is, hey, how big do I want this company to be? Do I want it to be a lifestyle business, just kind of you and services, and hey, it makes you a really good living? Or do you want this to be a scalable company? Is this going to be a $10 million company, 20? Do you want this to be like a $100+ million company? And that matters. Even before you get to that point, you kind of need to ask yourself, is this gonna make me money? Is this gonna be a profitable venture? Could it be a profitable venture? And so what we're gonna explore today is looking at a financial model and looking at how do I look at the business from a financial perspective rather quickly and just check my assumptions. Is there something here? Let's jump into it. There's lots of ways to do financial modeling for a startup. One of the things, especially in products in SaaS or subscription-based companies, the primary metrics are two things: customer acquisition cost and lifetime value. When we put those two together, it's referred to as unit economics. Hey, am I able to make money on each customer? Is each customer profitable? Not looking at it from a cash flow perspective or P&L perspective quite yet. We're just looking at, hey, could this make money on an individual customer basis? That's called unit economics. Let's take a look. So unit economics is what we're trying to drive towards right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to back out of that and move all the way up to the acquisition side of the business. So here we have a bunch of different funnel stages. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, hopefully getting customers to a magic moment where they're really feeling that, hey, this product helps them and they're going to be paying you. So this is just one model. There's lots of different ways to do this, but here's an example. If you're doing paid acquisition, which is typical for more startups, especially early, right? You're not going to be investing in SEO and long game. You're going to be doing quick hits to see what messaging works and how fast you can acquire customers. So with paid ads, you're going to have some kind of acquisition cost. It's going to start high, right? And high is relative depending on who you're targeting, what keywords you're using, a whole bunch of different things. So you put the acquisition cost in there for just a click, right? Just on the paid side. But that's not it. It's not over. There's a whole bunch of different activation steps you do as you work customers through, whether it's downloading an app or uploading their information, getting their account set up, actually starting a free trial, whatever it is, whatever your onboarding experience is, you put these as steps, get them to a magic moment, and each time they're going through a step, you're actually losing people, right? Okay, at this step, 80% of the people that are going from at step 2 actually make it to step 3. maybe 90% of the people at step 3 make it to the next step. You're going to have fall off at each step, and you just want to kind of account for some of that. Again, these are just assumptions, but you have to start with something, right? What do I think the customer journey is? What are the major inflection points? What do I think, if we're able to get it right, what are the conversion rates across that? What you're doing is you're building a funnel. You want to get down to what that does is it kind of calculates for us then what the actual acquisition cost is, right? If you're getting a click for 77 cents, but you're losing people along the way, then it's going to take more than one person to get to a paying customer, to get through the end of that funnel. So when you put all those together, with these, in this example, the actual acquisition cost for a paying customer or someone starting a free trial in this case is like almost $6. So you can't just look at your paid ads, you have to look at the full funnel. Next thing to consider is referral. Now, it's a really high bar to get your customers to that magic moment that we talked about up here. It's a really high bar. If you're able to do that, you can also consider, hey, is this something that people would share and talk about? Is this something they would share with a friend? That would really help your acquisition cost as well. But there's a big assumption here. I'd be pretty conservative up front about what you think would actually happen. The goal would be for someone to share. The average user shares with one other person. It's probably more like 0.25 people. 1 in every 4 persons maybe going to share. And then the people that actually see that, are they going to download? Are they going to start engaging in your funnel? You can put those two together, and what it'll do is it'll reduce your acquisition cost, right? So from $5.94, almost $6, closer, getting closer to $5. So that referral actually decreases your acquisition cost. Again, these are just assumptions, right? And I'd be really conservative up front, especially with referral, because the viral component is actually very hard to achieve. The next thing to look at is retention, right? How long are people staying? In SaaS products, we often measure that in number of months. So maybe they stay for 6 months. And then again, this is a bell curve, right? It's a bell curve. And what you're going for is the average. Of course, you're going to have people stay longer. You're going to have a lot of people that stay shorter. So put in what you think the average, this is again an assumption, is going to be for the retention. And then next is revenue. So from a revenue perspective, if it's a subscription product, how much are they paying? Is that monthly? How much are they paying per year? And when you put those two together, you kind of get your lifetime for that customer. So if it's $49 a month, 6 months, it's $299 is the lifetime value. If you have any other potential revenue streams, you can put that in here too, get the total revenue per customer. When you put that all together, it brings us right down to where we started, which is unit economics. So again, we want to look at, hey, what's the customer lifetime for this customer? What's the acquisition cost for this customer? Put those two together and we get a ratio. We can talk more about that another time. And that brings us down to customer lifetime value. So how much might we be able to make on a per customer basis? Now, this sets us up well to kind of understand, could we maybe, if these assumptions are true, could we make money on a per customer basis, customer lifetime value? If we are, then we can move forward into other things like market sizing. What's the market cap based on how many potential customers are out there, our reach, how many we can actually acquire through these channels. That gives us kind of a market cap. And the other thing to look at is a P&L or income statement, which points us to like a break-even point based on how much we have to spend to get there, what kind of investment would be required. There's lots of different ways to do this. This is an example. What you want to do is kind of model out the business rather quickly, not spend too much time on it, but just kind of get some gut check assumptions. Hey, if we're able to accomplish this, if this journey were to exist, we were able to get people through here at this cost, and if they were willing to pay and subscribe. Again, there's lots of assumptions in here all the way, but if we were able to do that, would we or could we be profitable on an individual customer basis at the unit economics level? And then you can look at scaling it up from a break even, scaling it up from a market sizing, looking at costing, how long would it take and how much it would take to get there. But it also sets you up for assumption testing out in the market, right? Can you actually acquire customers for that amount? Will customers actually move through the funnel like you think? And as customers start to move through, then you can update your model to reflect reality and see how that's impacting your bottom line.
All right, awesome. Great little presentation from Ryan. That's actually part of our Startup Foundation series, which is available on our website at headway.io. I'll put a link in the chat there. But next, we're going to have Ryan kind of share a couple more thoughts around financial models and startups, and continue the discussion. And I remember, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them. If you want to actually join us on the call here, we can actually send you a link and we can unpack something together with you. If you feel like your question's too big to put in the chat, we can do that as well. So I'll hand it off to Ryan and we can go ahead.
Wonderful. Yeah, thanks, Jacob. Yeah, so what are your financial model questions? We see a
Ryan, looks like we lost your audio.
lost my audio.
Oh, there you are. We're back.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Sometimes this has been happening. It happened
Mhm.
happened once before too.
Yep.
So anyway, we'd love to have your financial model questions if you want to put those in the chat, or even let us know if you want to jump on, and we'd be happy to like dive into a real example and kind of unpack this with you. If I need to be, the way we think about it is that what we're really doing is answering these questions, and there's 4 kind of questions that.
Hey, Ryan. Your
One of
audio
the questions.
I was gonna say your audio keeps cutting out. Do you have like different headphones? Maybe you can try quick. Sorry.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's your headset, if it's the Bluetooth or not.
Yeah, I don't know. One sec.
Sorry, folks. We'll get there. The beauty of editing.
Okay, how about now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Jacob,
Yeah.
can you hear me? Okay,
Yep.
good. All right, so picking it back up. Sorry about the technical difficulties. This is it's live. It happens. So let's talk about financial models. In my mind, there are 4 questions that we're really trying to get at, and depending on what questions you're trying to answer, we're going to use different tools, right? Kind of like I mentioned in the video, there's not one financial model to rule them all. There's different subsets, there's different types of financial models that will pull in depending on what questions we're trying to answer. So let's walk through some of the most common questions that you might be thinking about, and see if this prompts anything for you. And again, feel free to put anything in chat along the way here. So number 1 is business viability. These are all real questions, but the question here first I would say is like, what should our revenue model be? What's our pricing model? How are we going to charge? Is it based on per transaction? Is it per month? Are there different pricing tiers? Is there a premium? Or there's lots of ways to do this, but it's really important to think about, hey, how am I actually going to get paid? And we find a lot of entrepreneurs kind of floating at that 20 or 30,000 foot level, and it's so exciting to live in your imagination about what this thing could be, and it's going to be amazing, right? But what we need you to do is land the plane. You need to bring it down from this high level vision of this is going to be so many things, going to make money so many different ways, to let's actually bring it into reality, pull it into a spreadsheet, and actually write down, hey, how are we really going to get paid? So what should our revenue model be? And what will it take to be profitable per customer? You saw in the video, and we'll show you some more examples today. The question here is, can I make money on a per customer basis? That's called unit economics. So that's question 1, is how are we going to get paid for one customer, and can we be profitable for one customer? That's a viability question. Question type 2 would be market opportunity. Is the market big enough? We see this all the time where entrepreneurs are chasing opportunities that are actually pretty small. And there's a line there to be drawn between too small and getting into a niche market. And how big do you want the business to become? And is where you're entering the market actually going to open up that bigger opportunity for you? And again, we also find that people they have a really hard time niching down into a specific segment enough where they can actually speak right to their customer and get really targeted. It's really important. But we do see this challenge where the market is actually too small, and they have to think of a different approach. And we challenge our clients all the time: who's your target customer, and do we have to pivot? And market size is a really good gut check to know if there's enough room here. 3 is investment capital. Hey, how much money do I need to raise? We hear this all the time. How much money do I have to raise for my startup? This is really a cash management, cash flow kind of question. How you spend the money. If you raise, $500 million, how are you going to spend it? Where does that money go? How does that get allocated? And how much runway do you actually have at your current burn rate, right? How do you manage your burn? These are investment capital kind of questions. When's the right time to hire? When's the right time to outsource? How fast can we realistically grow? And we'll talk a little bit about, and Andrew will talk a little bit about, your cost hypothesis versus your growth hypothesis, and those two together become an income statement. And type 4 that we're not going to actually cover today is really about retention. It's for later stage companies that are really on the product market fit and almost growth stage. It's, hey, are we at product market fit? How do I know if I'm there? Are we ready to actually scale? Should I go raise a growth round, right? Those are retention type questions. And depending on kind of the questions you're trying to answer, there's different tools. There's different tools we can pull in depending on what you're trying to answer. So if you're going after the business viability questions, hey, what should our revenue model be? How are we going to get paid? What's our acquisition cost? Are we going to be profitable? We're going to use something called unit economics for that. We're going to be doing market sizing, and there's a couple ways to do market sizing that's important to talk about as well to gauge the market opportunity. And then 3, for the investment capital, we'll talk about cash flow and cash management. We're going to be using a profit and loss statement, also called an income statement. And we'll pull up some of those as examples. But let us know if you have any questions along the way. We want to make this as relevant as possible. And again, if any of you want to jump in live, we can do that. So let's get started. Let's talk about business viability. It's kind of what we talked about in the video, but we'll touch on it again. Maybe show you a couple different examples on unit economics. So here's the spreadsheet that you saw there in the video. And we're happy to plug in real numbers here along the way, but the idea is that you're going to have to acquire these different stages of the funnel. There's an acquisition stage, and depending if you're B2B or B2C, it's going to be different, right? If you're going to be B2B, you might actually have a sales team. You might be doing outbound, right? You might have SDR actually, trying to get someone to meet with you. Or you might be doing inbound. You might be doing more paid media for sure with B2C. It'd be that route. But there's always a cost associated with acquiring customers or leads, I should say. They're not customers yet; they're leads. And then you're going to pull them into this next stage of the funnel, which is activation. And along these steps, you want to get someone to experience the value of your product extremely fast and soon. But there's still going to be these steps, whether it's signing up for a free trial. On our Exploring Product podcast, we talked about onboarding and how important and critical onboarding is, right? If you can't get people past these initial activation steps, if you can't get someone to a magic moment, then nothing else matters, right? So how do you pull someone and show them value really, really quick? Some of the examples of that are like Calendly. If you use Calendly for your calendar, there's a great example where some of the very first steps in the Calendly experience is for you to book a meeting with yourself, right? That's an example of like, hey, how do I make those activation steps super short so we're not introducing all this other anxiety about What will the experience be for someone else who I'm booking a meeting with, right? I don't want them to have a bad experience, but booking it with yourself actually becomes this magic moment where I see how this works, right? There's other examples as well. Miro.com, it's a tool we use here quite a bit. And Miro gets you to a magic moment really quickly by just getting you to experience the product and then inviting your team. But the question is, hey, how are you going to acquire customers? And what's the cost associated with that? What are your key activation steps? And how do you shorten that up to get people to experience value really quickly, get them to a magic moment, and then actually try to sell them, convert to a paying customer. And you can see that brings us to acquisition cost. Okay, so I'm not going to repeat all the stuff that we covered in the video. If you have any specific questions on unit economics, we'll definitely love to cover that. I do have another example to share on unit economics here and revenue model. So you can see here, we're trying to model out, let's say 5 different scenarios, right? 5 different scenarios here on, hey, how could we get paid, right? There's different ways to get paid. Percent of savings, right? If you're delivering a lot of value, could you actually, cost reduction, could you take a percent of savings? Is it based on transactions and volume? Are you doing just a flat fee regardless of scale with your customers? Is there a setup cost? Is there a setup fee associated with it, right? We do a setup fee and then you move to this other revenue stream. Is it per employee? So there's all these revenue options and you can kind of explore, hey, if I got paid this way or that way, how would that look? And then it introduces all these other assumptions about would the market actually, pay that? Can you actually pitch that and have someone be willing to pay that? But you want to model out different revenue models related to this business viability question. How do we get paid? What will it take to be profitable? And you can see we're kind of coming down to a monthly revenue dollar amount for each of these scenarios. And you can kind of see, well, maybe I really don't want to do this option. Scenario 4, maybe that scenario's out, right? So it's going to also help you focus and get to what pricing you want to actually test with the market, what you don't want to what's not even worth experimenting with, right? What's not worth your time. And it's going to drive you to these unit economics. And there's something really important in unit economics. When we talk about lifetime value, acquisition cost, there's a ratio there. And there's a sweet spot that you need to be in. Otherwise, you're going to have cash flow problems. So when we put LTV and CAC together, there's a minimum ratio that you need to be at. I'm talking for like subscription type models. You need to be there. There's 2 criteria you need to meet in a subscription type business. 1, you need to have a LTV ratio of at least 3 to 1. Right, so you need to make $3. You need to have a lifetime value of $3 for every $1 it costs you on the acquisition side. If you don't, that means because what's happening is when you're acquiring a customer, you're actually losing money, right? You're spending money, you're going down, and what you need to know is how fast can I pay that back per customer. So the faster you can pay that back, the faster that LTV catches up to the acquisition cost, the better your cash flow is going to be. If you have a really long curve and it's going to take 12 months or more to recoup that cost, you're going to have cash flow problems, right? And you're going to be trying to raise money, but you're going to be putting so much money in, and that J curve to come back up is so far out, you're going to really struggle from a cash perspective. So the 2 things you want to look for in a subscription business, lifetime value, acquisition cost, that ratio should be 3 to 1, and you need to get paid back less than 12 months, ideally 6 months or less, right? If you can get paid back, you can kind of break even, if you will, on that customer acquisition cost in the first 6 months, you're in a sweet spot. And so this is giving you an idea, putting these things together gives you these ratios. You can see here I've got these color-coded red because, well, the LTV to CAC ratio is only 2. Like, I know this is out, and we kind of knew this was out from just the gross margin per client compared to the others. And it also shows me the number of months to recoup my acquisition cost is 31 months. Like, I'm never making money, right? No one's even going to stay that long, right? So you want to get paid back as fast as possible, which means you want to keep your acquisition costs low, and you want to obviously you'd like to deliver value that demands a higher price. That's going to be really good for cash flow, because you also have retention to worry about. We haven't talked about even the retention game yet. So I hope this is helpful. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, so that kind of covers unit economics. Let us know if there's any questions on that. Let's talk about market opportunity. Is the market big enough? Again, this is a common challenge we see. Here, Andrew, I don't know if you want to touch base on this one, but here's an example market sizing that covers the U.S., Europe, and there's multiple ways to do it. There's multiple ways to do market sizing. But Andrew, I'll let you talk on this first.
Can you hear me all right, Ryan?
Yep, great.
If you go back to like that first financial model, I just wanted to make one point. The first one.
Can't hear you now, Andrew.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. I think we should be done on technical hitches. But the first thing, we've talked about a lot, and you can see funnel stage, is that like getting a customer isn't just a conversion event, right? Especially in SaaS where you have, free trials, potentially you have some sort of freemium model. You have this funnel of opportunity that warms someone up from, hey, who is this brand? Who is this product? Like, what do they stand for? Can they help me? And really communicating that value down to those steps of that magic moment. And so it's just really important to call out that like it really is a funnel to get somebody engaged. So like acquiring them as a user doesn't mean anything if you can't get them converted. And so the more you can increase that likelihood of success, and as Ryan talked about in onboarding, it's just going to have a wild impact on that CAC to LTV ratio and that acquisition cost. So something that I think can't be understated, and that's where most people lose. I think just think back to your own behaviors of, hey, I downloaded this app, I maybe didn't even get fully activated on it, I never got to that magic moment, that aha moment, and I forgot I even downloaded it, and next time I go through my phone I just delete it. What was this, right? And so I think like, how do you make those onboarding experiences and those value propositions that you're communicating to them really memorable? And I think that kind of all riffs off of the customer segments that we talked about before, and like making sure you're talking to the right people, because if it's not the right people, it's the wrong audience, like you're not going to see good conversion rates, you're not going to see good funnel metrics, and all of that really bleeds from who we're serving and are we getting the right people to see the right things. So just wanted to mention that before we go forward.
Yeah, no, it's totally real. I mean, I have tons of apps on my phone that I've downloaded that I don't even ever open. Right. So like, yeah, you got to download. Yeah. Step 1 or step 2. What? Great. But I never paid you a dime. And I can just think about how many websites you go to where you're like, well, this is interesting. I'm kind of curious on what they're doing. And I'll just put my email in. I'll get in. I'll subscribe. Right. And then just see ya. And, we hear people all the time saying, oh, I have, 500 people sign up on my list. This is going to be great. Yeah. But they haven't paid anything. Like they're just up here on step 1, right? And you're not to revenue yet. We see a lot of people making, decisions based on low amount of what we call currency, right? Like, question is what level of currency are they going to give you? Them giving you their credit card number, is a lot different than them giving you your email, right? So absolutely cannot be understated that this is where most companies fail, is they get excited about, oh yeah, we got so many people visiting our site. They get into these vanity metrics that are higher up in the funnel, but they're not actually getting people down. And that really is where we try to help a lot of startups, is get to a value proposition that resonates, get to experimentation, and figure out how do we pivot really quickly and learn what people are actually willing to get out their credit card for.
Yeah, I think a great example. I'm not sure if you've tried it, Ryan, but obviously as COVID came to market, Clubhouse was all the rage, right? Where you could have these on-demand podcast-like experiences that aren't recorded, but they acquired customers like crazy and got to like $100 million valuation. I think $100 million investment, something really, really substantial. And I ran a poll a couple of weeks ago just to ask people like, when's the last time you logged into Clubhouse? Because everyone had tried it, but nobody had been back in months in like the past year. And so it was really interesting to like think about the problems that they're having where activation, isn't considered when someone activates their account. Like activation is really getting to this magic moment where they come back to a second show or a third show or get ingrained with someone. Like there's all these dynamics that are beyond someone just creating an account that is getting to that value. That's like, okay, now when I think of Clubhouse, I think of this value I received or this opportunity that I have to like go and get more of that. And it's just apparent that a lot of people started, they were acquired, their interest was acquired, they were intrigued by the buzz and everything going on, but it never delivered them personal value, so they never went back to it. And I think like that's the challenge that we have to try and solve, and the friction in the process is, as Clubhouse and all these other tools, and as you're entering the market, you have all these other options that people have. How do you stand out and differentiate not only your product and offering in the business, but that experience to pull them through to get them to that magic moment? And you hear this a lot referenced as like aha moment, and the moment of clarity where somebody just aligns, like the value prop aligns, and people really get it. So I think just trying to pick apart that experience, and the only way that I've feel like is valuable is to do or like valuable enough to get those insights is to understand someone's perspective on it. Like, yeah, this, these conversion rates that Ryan has in here, it tells you what people are doing, but it's so important for you to go to people and have conversations, understand why they're onboarding, what they're doing, and understand like, why do they perceive it that way? Like, what are the things about it that make them interested or disinterested, and how do you accentuate those as you go? And I think like that's where combining product strategy and design and UX, where you're getting the qualitative of how they're feeling, what they're thinking, their anxieties, and then the quantitative of what they're doing through the funnel to actually solve these problems and get them from step 1 through step 5. So really, really important there.
Yeah, we often find that it's real easy to get excited about your idea, to tell people about it, to create a pitch deck and create, get in Excel and do all these fun things and see big numbers in Excel. I think that's part of the fallacy here, is that this is just a gut check. Really, what's behind these numbers? Why is this actually happening? Could I actually get people to this, to get to this step? And that's where, spreadsheet's not going to help you. We're really going to need to talk to customers. You're really going to need to understand what's going on, right? And we also talk about like, when we're interviewing customers. Hey, tell me what were you imagining, right? What were you picturing that was gonna happen, right? When you saw that ad, what did you think you were walking into? Oh, and it turns out they thought they were going to end up somewhere, and then they saw your site and it's totally different than what they expected, and they're like, no, this isn't for me. Right? So like, are we even creating the right impressions, the right imagined experiences along the way to get people to buy in? Are we answering the right questions? Can I trust you? Have you done this before? There's so much ambiguity. There's so much behind just these first 2 steps, right? A lot of people actually get people to visit the site and then nothing happens. No one signs up, right? I know we're modeling out like 2, 3, 4 magic moment, but a lot of people fail like, right here. And there's so much discovery work that needs to go on. So, yes, create a financial model real quickly. We call it a napkin model on purpose. And the reason we're using that kind of term is to force you to be scrappy about it and not spend days and weeks kind of like perfecting this artificial thing. Like, do the exercise, get some numbers in here, get a gut feel. What do you think that experience is? Boom. And then you got to it's a napkin, because you can throw it away and actually get out into the market, get out of the building and get real with customers. That's what you're going to have to do to be successful. So I do have some other stuff that that we can be sharing. I can keep going. Jacob, do we have any questions from the audience yet? I can't hear you.
Oh, my apologies. Here we go.
There he is.
Yeah, we don't have any questions yet, but I will say that if we don't or if you're watching this recording, because I'll be editing this video and uploading to YouTube later. If you're watching this now and it's the recorded version, you can actually follow up with us, and you can contact us at ahoy@headway.io. Or if you're watching right now and you just don't have any questions yet, but then you kind of are going through this flow and you're like, oh, I'm getting stuck, feel free to reach out to us and we'll do our best to help you out on your journey. So just wanted to share that.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned, Andrew, like Clubhouse, right? There's different approaches. There's no right or wrong way to run your startup, to launch it, to get it going. But there's some really critical decisions that will affect your path, and that has consequences. And some of those are irreversible decisions. Not very few are irreversible, but there are some of those for sure. And one of those would be like a freemium model. That's a really hard thing to come back from. We've talked to startups quite a bit who think, oh yeah, I'm just going to give it away for free and then I'll make money later, right? And that's a really hard thing, because if you're delivering value now, you can get paid for that, or you can try to give something away for free, but then then the bar becomes so much higher for you to deliver more value than what you're already giving, right? So it really becomes how much of that, how do we grow? There's a ton of work in thinking through those things. But you can also test that with the market. Would people actually pay for this? And especially if you're B2B, we would suggest, freemium's probably not a fit. It often isn't, but sometimes it is. So, but you can do those scenarios here, and what you see is I just have one, but if I can unhide these, we encourage you to run a couple. Hey, if this happens, then that would put me here. If that happens, then that would put me there. But again, this is a napkin model for you to do it and then get out of the building, right? Because what this helps you form is assumptions that you can actually go test. You can go test, hey, can I acquire someone for 77 cents, right? That's an assumption. You can see here, I'm already kind of, well, if I could get it down to 50 cents, what would that mean? And it gives you a gut check for what channels are gonna work, and you would know based on my pricing, based on what my assumptions, how long they're gonna stay, what channels will and won't work right away. So you can use this to inform how you run your experiments and what assumptions you need to go validate. And then as you're making progress, as you're actually acquiring customers, as you're getting to do that step one, and maybe step two in your activation funnel, you can update this and see how it impacts your model, right? That's a really important thing to keep doing. So we covered unit economics. Let's cover market sizing. So this is an example that, there's no right or wrong way to do market sizing. In my mind, there's two big ways to do it, and they're different. One is a top-down model. The other one is a bottoms up. And top down is really using like these, other tertiary sources to kind of, I'm gonna use a Gartner report or Forrester report or whatever to kind of, number of companies out there in this, industry or whatever. That's top down. And often the problem with top down is that you're going to overestimate the size. The other way to do it is bottoms up, and it's really one way that we like to think about things, because it gets really real, right? Like, can I actually find my first 100 prospects? Where would you find those? You get into channels right away, you get into acquisition costs right away, you get into all those real things in a bottoms up model. Andrew, anything else you wanted to mention on this?
No, I don't think so. I think in that bottoms up model, like what we found to be most helpful is not everyone, especially when you're introducing something new, is going to be an early adopter. And so I think like in these interviews, as we target people and as we build lists and have conversations, figuring out like what contexts add up to somebody that would purchase as we craft an offer, and like trying to understand how do we pare down this large market data into actual behavior of, hey, and I guess trying to draw out the patterns of those that move forward or take you up on a specific offer and actually purchase, pre-launch. Like, how do we understand the context so that we can further carve out the market of say, hey, initially this is our addressable market and this is what we're going for, and they have these characteristics. And it's not always true from a characteristic standpoint, when you think about personas, but when you think about context, like that kind of pulls out some of the jobs. And if people aren't trying to succeed along that context or in that job, then they're probably not an early customer, right? That's probably someone we could serve later, or at least carve out and not try to target initially. So I think like as we're doing market sizing, it usually is trying to get real of, hey, of the conversations we've had of people that meet this, what are those, sub-contexts or contexts that help give us more clarity around who our early users might be. That'd be the only thing.
Yeah, like when you think about, okay, I'm going to actually go pitch my idea now, right? Who am I actually going to go pitch to? It gets really real, and it forces you to actually make decisions on who your target customer segment is and isn't. And right there, that's going to impact your market size. It's going to impact your messaging. It's going to impact your pricing, like all those things. So that's why we always start with the customer, always start with the market, and everything else is going to follow, right? Because if you start with the market, this segment versus that segment, they're going to be different. And you're going to build a different value proposition. You're going to have different pricing. You're going to build a different product. You're going to have a different financial model depending on who you're going after. And so the bottoms up forces you to do that. So as an example, if you're a B2B startup and you're trying to build a prospect list, right? You might be in like LinkedIn, Sales Navigator. You might know a couple companies or know some contacts. You do a LinkedIn search and you look at them and you're like, no, not them. And then you have to ask yourself, why not them, right? But these would be a great first prospect. I'd love to talk to them. That really helps you. The bottoms up really helps you clarify who's your ideal customer profile, who that target customer segment really is. Because the top-down approach, again, Andrew, we mentioned this at the beginning, was like people, entrepreneurs, they want to keep their options open, right? We hate to close doors, if you will. And top down allows you to do that. Oh, there's a billion people that would want this thing. But we need to land the plane. And the top down model of actually building a prospect list, seriously, we would challenge you to go build a list right now of the 100 top prospects you'd love to go sell to. And that right there will be the impetus for everything else you do. Okay, what's their life like? How are you going to pitch to them? What are they struggling with? What are they trying to achieve? How would life be different with your product in their life, right? And that leads you right into value. That leads you right into pricing. That leads you right into unit economics. It's the source of everything. So we really believe that a bottoms-up model, starting with a prospect list, it's a great way to do it. Again, that's mostly B2B, but also for B2C, who would you actually, if you were to go sell this yourself and find people, even do outbound, B2C outbound, whether it's through Twitter or something, who would you want to be targeting and how would you talk about that? So that's market sizing. I think the last thing we want to talk about is the investment capital piece. And again, this investment capital piece doesn't matter unless you've solved, you've proven that, hey, customers are willing to really, there's really an opportunity here. The market is worth going after. And I know who I target. I've actually got letters in hand, even checks in hand that people want to buy this thing. Not just emails. I mean, that's one thing, but we'd love to get your currency even higher so that you have more evidence, a stronger case to bring to your investors to do that raise. Well, let's talk a little bit about the investment capital side. That we're not really focused on raising capital in today's topic, but we do want to talk about, hey, from a financial modeling standpoint, what are some different ways to do it? The tool we're going to use to answer these questions, like, hey, how much money do I need to raise, and how will I spend that? How much, what's the runway I need? When's the right time to hire? Those kinds of questions. How fast could we actually grow? We're going to do that in a profit and loss P&L. And here's an example of that financial model. So, Andrew, you want to touch on this?
Yeah, sorry, I'm zooming in. Yeah, from a financial model standpoint, obviously, you kind of have your main aspects: revenue, operating costs, which include, personnel, include your spending. If you scroll down a little bit, ultimately getting to your profit and loss, you're basically trying to understand when do when does our income uh, break even with our outcome, and that gives you an idea of runway, gives you an idea of initial funding you might need. So a lot of times we recommend, usually around, I would say sometimes as little as 12 months, but usually up to 18 months as you're doing, some seed round planning where you're trying to get investment that's going to cover your expenses for that amount of time, so you can learn with the market, you can increase, your revenue and acquisition costs and those sorts of things. Um, but specifically, you want to get into the details of and start thinking through month by month, and so often we'll usually combine a financial model, and I'm not sure if it's in this one, with a business kind of monthly goal model, like, hey, we're trying to launch this offer to the market, and we really try to get your mind into, like, what does that take from our team perspective? Well, is that going to take more development? Is that going to take us working with a marketing firm? How do you think about all the aspects of your business that you can say, here's the forecasted spend, here's the forecasted revenue, and at some point those cross together? I think where a lot of people go wrong on their financial model is that they're more ambitious than much more ambitious, where everything's hockey stick growth. And a lot of investors, I'm sure, would mimic this, where every financial projection slide they see is, hey, month 2, 3, 4, we're building on hundreds of customers, and then we're going to grow and scale to the moon. I think really think, like, what is it going to take for you in either model, B2B or B2C, to make those customers successful and to keep them happy, because those early customers are going to take much more time of yours than you plan, right? Your business isn't plug and play. The way you deliver your solution isn't plug and play. So I think, like, really challenge yourself to think about the milestones that you have for your business and what you're launching, and, like, who is it actually going to take? Another important thing to think about as you think about your product and that you want to get onto these costs is, and I'm not sure if we have it in here with some of our expenses, but essentially, like, your hosting expenses. What are all the different tools you're going to be using? A lot of SaaS companies are driven by other SaaS companies, which is great. But as you scale and as you grow, like, there's certain models that you want to account for: hosting, you want to account for any dev tools, design tools, things that you're using. So you can get very granular in this if you need to. And I think early on that's really important.
I just want to say something actually about just the cost and, like, thinking about, like, marketing tech and all that kind of stuff. I think a lot of people go too far with technology before they actually figure out, like, their positioning of their product market fit. They get too caught up in, like, the click-through rates of their buttons, like, optimization. I think, like, they need to at least, like, get paying customers happening and then, like, optimize after that. I think I'd highly recommend listening to Chris Walker from State of Demand Gen podcast. He talks a lot about that, how a lot of people, they invest way too much money in marketing tech because they don't have their customer figured out yet, and you're optimizing for something that doesn't matter, and you can waste a lot of time and energy and money on tools you don't need yet. Like, those tools can be helpful at some point, but, like, you just need to get your startup moving, your product moving. You need to get those sales moving. So don't worry about optimizing until you actually feel like, as John Zaratsky said, when you find product market fit, it's like following a boulder down a hill. Like, you're trying to keep up with, like, wow, like, we're getting all this traction. You're, like, trying to keep up with the growth. That's when you can start to, like, figure out, okay, we know what's working. We know who we're serving. We know what they want. Now you can start to optimize things on your site, use that marketing tech to leverage that data. So.
Yeah, and it's the same mindset that you should take when you think about building your startup, right? Like, a lot of people, and we've talked about this on many videos on the channel and just throughout Headway, that many people think, like, I need an app to deliver this because it's scalable and we can do it. You need to prove it for one person, and then 5, and then 10. Like, you need to serve them a certain way and do it manually, and just encourage you to, like, lean into that versus thinking that the only way to serve them is if I optimize it. But you don't really know the nuances. You don't know the mechanics. You don't know exactly how you're going to provide value yet. So figuring that out up front to your point, Jacob, like in marketing, in business, you're going to be much more educated around where you can put automation, versus like, hey, it's automated. Well, it doesn't work. So does it matter if it's super slick and easy to use if it doesn't actually help anyone win or doesn't help you close more deals because you're not sure on your prospect? Like all of those things tie into each other, and focusing on the process as it goes before you go try to scale it to the moon in an unproven way. You really need to get those early wins.
Yeah, and I would also challenge everyone that's listening to not just, when you think about marketing channels like such as Facebook, Google search ads, so cost per click type stuff, even Twitter ads, Instagram ads, all those different places. I would also encourage you to be more non-traditional with where you're acquiring your customers. Think about find like newsletters that your target customers or your ideal customers are reading and they're engaging with. Find, you could, the word of that a lot of people use as influencers, but don't think about it that way. Find people that your ideal customers are listening to and engage with online, and reach out to those people, those like thought leaders, and just say, hey, we have a new product. We'd love to serve it to your audience. But make sure that when you're having that conversation, you're providing value to that, influencer or that thought leader, and making, even like work alongside them and say, hey, I'm actually working on this product. Like, what are your thoughts on it? And like, maybe you get some insights there. But the idea is like, try to, non-traditional channels can be way more affordable and way more effective. Because if you're spending all these ads, ad spend on Facebook ads, Instagram, Twitter, wherever, or LinkedIn, and it's not working yet, like I would pull back and just rethink like channel as in like the places that people are hanging out, not just social platforms. So
Totally. I think to Andrew's point about a common flaw we see is that you get too aggressive. It's really easy to be in here again and play with Excel and tweak these numbers and see, big numbers. I want to see big numbers, right? The truth is, it usually takes twice as long as you think it will, and you need to allow yourself some of that buffer space, so you're not taking on costs too early. You're not anticipating this crazy growth too early. So you can see kind of like estimated number of new customers, and is this realistic or not, right? And then you can see kind of how the expenses over time increases to support those new customers coming on. So you're modeling revenue, you're modeling operating costs, but you want to try to be slim about it. And this is another similar one where you're doing same thing. Revenue, like how many new sales am I bringing on? You can see, like in this example, we're assuming none. We're assuming we're actually not bringing any new customers on for the first 5 months. We're trying to figure it out and actually making conservative assumptions. Hey, we're just in this stage, we're just pitching to customers, right? And then once we get them on, then we start bringing them on, and then we go into actual building a real product, and kind of just, I want you to be conservative about what your growth expectations actually are, because you're setting expectations for the investors, anyone that you're pitching to. And yes, you want them to be excited. You want to be excited about it, but don't put yourself in a bad spot by modeling something that's just too aggressive. Andrew, anything else you think we should hit on in this session?
Well, I think number 4 there, could be a session in its own around retention, but I think like we talked a lot about being realistic with your financial models to get the first sale. Retention is obviously about like continuing to get the sale, continuing to provide value, promote the value you're providing to people. So we don't necessarily have to go there, but that, the mindset of like acquiring new customers has a limit. Like retaining the customers you have and making sure you're acquiring the right customers is going to help your business grow faster and more sustainably than anything else. Like if you acquire all the wrong people and they're only staying around for 2-3 months because they're not the right fit and you can't really serve them well, like it's going to continue to fall off, right? But if you can think about it as the right fit, for a longer period of time where you can actually serve them and solve their whole problem, you're going to find more of the right people. You're going to have less turnover, less churn, and probably a session we can cover at a different time, I think would be a great thing to go in depth a little bit.
For sure.
For sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. The retention piece is something that we do, later when you've got, when you've really got customers buying, and you're really now trying to work on, how do I improve my retention every month? How do I make next month even better retention, right? And really trying to understand, not customers who are about to buy. It's less of a sales game then. It's more of a, how do I keep them engaged? How do I keep them coming back? And we have different tools for that we'll cover another time. Actually, we've got the top answer on Quora in this department. So really great discussion. I hope this has kind of helped everyone with these mental models. It's actually helped me break these things down into categories. Hey, depending on what questions you're trying to answer, that's going to change the tool we use and how we answer it. But don't get too caught up in this. Make sure you get back out in the market and validate what you're modeling here.
We do have one question. I think we'll answer this one and we'll have to wrap up because we're getting close on time here. But Robert shares, how to test B2B customer price range for a completely new product. Value-based pricing is very hard before people get comfortable with the product. On the other side, there's nothing to compare to. Any thoughts around that?
I mean, I can give you my thoughts on that, Robert. First of all, thanks for the question. Something we often do when working with new products, it's hard, right? Like there's no right or wrong price, but there are questions that we ask that we think are very, very valuable in getting to what that price could be. You want to understand, you mentioned value-based pricing, so that's great. You want to understand, what they're struggling with now, what they're trying to achieve, what would be the value, what would be the impact of your business? How would that change the way your business runs? How would that change the way it works? What would the impact be? Once you understand that, you understand what they're really buying, how would life be different for you? You really want to get them to switch in their head from the current world to this imagined world, right? What's that imagined world look like? What's that worth? How would it change the rest of how you're doing things? That incremental, that difference, that variance right there, that's the value, right? So if you can quantify that, then you can take a percentage of that, right? You can work your value-based pricing off of that. Another way we do, and that works primarily in like B2B context. In B2C, it's even more abstract, where you actually can't quantify this business outcome. But again, we have a different set of questions that we ask there that are super valuable. We ask questions, we show them the value proposition, and we show them hey, first we got to get them excited about it. They actually, price doesn't matter in the buying journey, right? The price doesn't matter. It's the last thing to talk about. The first thing to talk about is is this for me? Are these my people? And do you understand the struggles I'm going through? Do you understand where I'm coming from? And are customers getting excited? Right? Is this something I really, really would love to get? First, get them excited about it. If you can get them there, then we ask questions like, hey, what would indicate low quality to you? What would indicate this is just too cheap that you wouldn't even trust it, right? That's one question. Next question we'd ask is what would indicate to you really high quality? This is worth, this is a really high quality thing of a lot of value, very reputable. What would indicate that price? What price would indicate that to you? And then you want to ask something like, what would you compare this to, right? You mentioned this price in your mind, what are you comparing it to? And that's when you get into the positioning conversation. That's when you really understand because they're trying to put you in a box, right? We get this all the time at Headway. They're trying to put us in a box. They're trying to put you in a box. And they're trying to, you want to know what box they're dropping you into because that box has a price associated with it. That box has alternatives associated with it. And you want to know where they're placing you in their mental model. If you can understand that, and if you don't like the box they're putting you in, then you need to change your positioning, change your messaging. You need to talk to them differently, which is going to put them in a different realm, right? So I hope this has been helpful, but those are my thoughts on pricing, both B2B and B2C.
Yeah, just one thing to add on the B2B front is, ProfitWell has a lot of really good resources on this, on finding willingness to pay, but also on value metrics. So like as you think about B2B pricing, thinking about, okay, if you're going to help your customers win, how do you know that they're getting more value out of it, right? And so there's a couple of ways, like usage is one where you're saving them money, getting them more returns, getting them more out of their investment, something like that, where it's tied to a specific amount of gain or a specific amount of savings. The other one you see a lot is like per seat. So if you have a project or a tool that's for like B2B, let's say it's for managers, and you know that your value is increasing with every manager that gets to utilize this tool, you could tie your pricing to managers. Or so like understanding how they're thinking about their growth and how they're getting more value from their business, and you tying that metric to how you're pricing versus an all-in package where it's like totally detached from value-based pricing, where it's like, hey, $1,000 a month, and they don't really have anything they're anchoring to, or a business, like they don't know if their business is growing or not because it's not measured or implemented in a way that's tied to how they're thinking about value. So there's a lot of good things that I'd recommend from Patrick and his team over at Profitwell on that pricing, the value metric, and like understanding how do you get to the bottom of it. Obviously, in many things that we talk about pricing and we talk about serving people, is like understanding their context and how they think about it, so always we'll come back to that, but hopefully that was helpful, Robert.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm gonna just share a couple things before we wrap up. Thanks, Ryan and Andrew, for everything today. It was, I think, a lot of great insights here. If you're looking for more content like this one that we shared today, we actually have a whole video series about things like this. Like, we're actually going to be talking again next month about one of these videos. So, financial models, customer research methods, rapid prototyping, like all the kind of basics that come into play when bringing a startup idea to life, and what that looks like from the business side, from execution, building a product. What does that all look like, um, you know from the beginning to the end, and how that is also a continuous journey. So I have a link in the chat there for Startup Foundations. We also have another series that's more focused on your mindset, and it's called Startup or Founders Mindset. So if you go to headway.io/founders mindset, you can find that as well. And again, if you have any questions from today's video, or anything maybe related to your startup, you can contact us at ahoy@headway.io. But yeah, I think that's it. We can wrap things up. Thanks again, Andrew and Ryan, for sharing all your wisdom today and experiences. And thanks everyone for showing up today and tuning in, and Robert for your question. We look forward to connecting with everyone again, same time next month. We'll also be talking about customer research methods, and what questions do you ask? Why do you ask those questions? Why is it not a good idea to just talk about your product right away, right? Like all this kind of thing. So super excited to unpack that. We're going to do like a live interview to show you an example as well. So hopefully everyone has a great week. If you need anything, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, take care and have a great day.